A historical overview of the Comanche Nation. In examining the expansion of America, one finds that Spanish advancement to the north and French movement westward from Louisiana both reached a halt. This cessation was largely due to the influence of the Comanche people. Their presence caused a delay of 4 decades before the United States could settle the territory of Texas and other plains regions. Originally a Shoshone people, the Comanches shared a common language and resided in the Great Basin of the western U.S., living as hunter-gatherers. Around the end of the 17th century, the Comanches obtained horses, a development that fundamentally transformed their society. The tribe's way of life was utterly transformed as they quickly became a formidable, well-armed, and equestrian society. This newfound mobility enabled them to depart from their mountainous homeland and Shoshone kin, migrating to the plains of eastern Colorado and western Kansas. Once established on the Great Plains, the Comanches initiated a movement southward. There, they discovered a more temperate climate, vast herds of bison, and plentiful wild horses, an ideal setting. Throughout this migration, they engaged in trade with the French, primarily for firearms and ammunition, and also with the Wichita tribe along the Red River. They additionally faced pressure from more heavily armed tribes to their north and east, like the Blackfoot and Crow. An extensive region of the southern plains, encompassing large portions of north, central, and west Texas, soon became recognized as Comanche territory, or Comancheria. It was only after settling on the southern plains that the group became widely known as Comanches, a term originating from a Ute word for adversary, or more directly, one who is always against me. While history has recorded them as Comanches, their own name for themselves was Namena, meaning our people. The Comanche society was structured into independent bands, which were themselves composed of family units. Upon marriage, a man would depart from his own family to become part of his wife's family unit. The buffalo was an essential resource for the Comanche people. Beyond being a primary food source, it was also utilized for making garments and constructing dwellings. Nevertheless, it was the horse that truly characterized the Comanche existence. It granted them the mobility to track the buffalo migrations and the superiority to hunt and engage in battle from atop a horse. Equines also evolved into a symbol of prosperity and an important item of commerce, as the Comanches were recognized as traders. In the art of horsemanship, the Comanches were without peer. The young were taught to ride in early childhood, and all members of the tribe cultivated remarkable equestrian abilities. Democratic ideals were deeply rooted within the Comanche political structure. Every band maintained both civil, or peace, chiefs and war chiefs, though customarily the senior civil chief held the greatest authority. Individuals attained leadership roles after being selected by the consensus of the band's members. During the early 1700s, as the Comanches moved into Texas, they clashed with tribes already established on the South Plains, most notably the Apaches. The Comanches emerged triumphant from this struggle, compelling the Apaches to relocate southward. In 1758, a force of approximately 2,000 Comanches and allied tribes assaulted a Spanish mission constructed for the Apaches along the San Saba River. The mission was looted and set ablaze, resulting in the deaths of 8 people inside, including 2 priests. 1 year later, a Spanish military force commanded by Colonel Diego Ortiz Barria was overcome by the Comanches and their allies in a battle that lasted an entire day on the Red River, near the location of a future Spanish fort. Unable to achieve a military victory over the Comanches, the Spanish instead extended offers of peace treaties over the following decades. With the Apache threat still present, some of these treaties were upheld while others were broken. In 1785, Spanish officials journeyed into Comancheria and secured a peace agreement with pledges of presence, a peace that endured until the century's close. It is estimated that the tribe's population during this period was between 20,000 and 40,000 individuals. As Spanish influence waned in the early 1800s, colonial authorities could no longer provide the promised gifts and trade items, and Comanche raids once again grew increasingly frequent. The Comanches conducted extensive raids into Spanish lands, seizing horses and other items that they would subsequently trade to American merchants entering Texas. These American traders supplied the Comanches with commercial goods, including weapons and bullets, while also creating a lucrative market for the Comanches' horses. Mexico achieved independence from Spain in 1821, yet this shift in leadership brought little change to Comancheria. Mexican authorities started to promote conflict by encouraging Shawnee, Cherokee, and other indigenous groups to attack the Comanches. The Mexican colonization law of 1824 facilitated foreign settlement in Texas, leading to an influx of colonists from the United States. The cordial relations built on mutually advantageous trade rapidly deteriorated as these new settlers occupied lands the Comanches viewed as their ancestral hunting territories, and the two populations soon became adversaries. After Texas gained its independence from Mexico in 1836, the Comanches and their allies still exercised complete dominion over the Texas plains. They regularly executed raids on frontier communities. During one such attack, they captured a 9-year-old girl who would later become fully assimilated into the tribe. This girl would later be identified as the mother of Quanah Parker, the renowned final chief of the Comanches. Sam Houston, the Republic of Texas's first elected president, advocated for a policy of peace. However, the Texas Congress would not consent to the single Comanche condition for a truce, the establishment of a formal border between Texas and Comancheria, so the initiative was declined. Mirabeau B. Lamar, who followed Houston as president, did not support peaceful coexistence and advocated for war against the Comanches. This stance reached its peak with the Council House fight, a disastrous event in San Antonio during the spring of 1840, where Texas officials tried to imprison a Comanche delegation seeking peace. Violence erupted, resulting in the deaths of 35 Comanches, among them 12 chiefs. The remaining 30 members of the delegation, mostly women and children, were taken captive by the Texans. The clash also claimed the lives of 7 Texans and wounded 8 others. In retaliation for this event, the Comanches initiated a punitive raid a few months later. An assembly of roughly 500 warriors under the leadership of Buffalo Hump swept across South Texas, wreaking havoc on the towns of Victoria and Linville, killing 25 Texans and plundering and burning settlements. As the war party moved back northward, they were confronted at Plum Creek by Texan militias. In the ensuing engagement, the Texas Rangers succeeded in defeating the Comanches. The Texan militia suffered 11 fatalities. The precise count of indigenous losses is unknown, though Ranger dispatches noted the recovery of 12 warrior corpses. That same October, Texan soldiers obliterated a Comanche settlement close to the location of present-day Colorado City. This action forced the Comanche Nation to withdraw across the Red River, successfully accomplishing the Texan aim of removing them from the state's frontier, yet at a devastating human cost. Despite Sam Houston's return to the presidency in 1841 and his efforts to revive his conciliatory policies, a durable peace agreement proved unattainable. After Texas joined the United States in 1845, the U.S. federal government took over the management of tribal affairs within the state. To attempt to safeguard both incoming settlers and native populations, officials founded 2 specific reservations in Texas in 1854. Approximately 350 Comanches, whose numbers had been severely reduced by war, epidemics, and the scarcity of the buffalo, agreed to move on to these reserved lands. Other independent Comanche bands, however, persisted in living freely across the open plains. Incursions became more frequent when the Civil War diverted military resources, leaving the frontier vulnerable, but upon the war's conclusion, federal forces reinstated protective garrisons and recommenced diplomatic engagements with the Plains tribes. The purpose of these pacts was to clear the area for new settlement by forcing the nomadic nations onto confined reservations. The Treaty of Medicine Lodge Creek in 1867, representing the last such compact with the Comanches, designated a reservation in the southwestern Indian Territory, situated between the Washita and Red Rivers, for the Comanche, Kiowa, and Kiowa Apache peoples. Faced with the rapid erosion of their ancestral lifestyle, many Comanches resisted subjugation and placed their hopes in a young mystic named White Eagle. During the spring of 1874, he promised them a conclusive triumph over the white colonists. A war chief known as Quanah Parker was also a highly influential figure for the defiant Comanche factions. Driven by this visionary's assurances, a coalition of warriors targeted a party of buffalo hunters at the Adobe Walls trading post in Hutchinson County. Comanches, Kiowas, and Cheyennes collectively assaulted these professional hunters, who were operating from a deserted military outpost in their campaign to exterminate the buffalo for their skins. Even though the hunters were overwhelmed in number, they achieved victory, protected by the sturdy fort walls and their advanced long-range buffalo rifles. This pivotal loss severely damaged the indigenous people's belief in their spiritual guidance. This defiance also provoked a retaliatory campaign from the U.S. government, initiating the same year a determined military offensive, later termed the Red River War. The operation was designed to compel all remaining native bands onto the reservation. Troops led by Colonel Ronald S. Mackenzie located and surprised a Comanche encampment in Palo Duro Canyon, subsequently capturing and slaughtering their entire horse herd. While few Comanche casualties were recorded in the fighting, the destruction of their provisions and transportation meant they could not endure the winter on the open plains and were compelled to move to the reservation. Quanah Parker and his followers resisted capture on the Llano Estacado for nearly a year, constituting the final band of free Comanches to eventually surrender and be relocated. Their population, once numbered in the tens of thousands, had dwindled to approximately 1,600 people by 1875. They were moved to the Fort Sill Reservation, which they inhabited alongside the Kiowa and Apache peoples. Reservation life represented a profound shift as federal agents worked to convert the hunters and warriors into farmers and livestock herders. Comanche traditions and spiritual practices were systematically undermined as they were pressured to adopt the customs of white society. This reservation phase concluded in 1901 when the territory was dissolved. Under the terms of the Jerome Agreement negotiated between the U.S. government and the Kiowa, Comanche, and Apache tribes, every individual was allotted 160 acres, with further acreage reserved for institutional use. In exchange, the tribes ceded the majority of their territorial holdings, retaining only 4 parcels totaling over 500,000 acres, and consented to accept a payment of $2 million for the ceded land. Comanche leadership voiced strong objections to the allotment process for various reasons, but federal authorities enforced the agreement's terms. The surplus lands not assigned to tribal members were opened for public settlement, leading to white settlers soon surpassing the native population on the former reservation lands. Over the following decades, many Comanche people began to relocate from the area in pursuit of economic prospects. A significant number departed to seek employment elsewhere. The onset of World War II soon followed, and numerous Comanches enlisted in the armed forces or found work in war-related industries. The Comanche people were part of a select group of tribes that aided the war effort by employing their native language as a basis for a coded communication system, a cipher that German intelligence never managed to decipher. A team of 17 Comanche men served in this capacity as code talkers. During the 1960s, motivated by a growing wave of indigenous activism and self-determination, the Comanches started to collaborate in revitalizing their community. This collective initiative led to significant political reorganization, culminating in the foundation of their own autonomous tribal government, which is currently based near Lawton, Oklahoma. The Comanche Nation in the present day has a population of about 16,000 enrolled members, with nearly half, approximately 8,000 individuals, residing in the southwestern part of Oklahoma. From the formidable lords of the southern plains to the resilient survivors of the reservation era, the Comanche journey is one of breathtaking scale and profound transformation. They were a force that dictated the maps of empires and defined the frontier for generations. But this history leaves us with a pivotal question. We remember the legacies of Rome and the conquests of Genghis Khan as world-altering events. So why does the name Quanah Parker or the story of the Comanche Empire not carry the same weight in our modern consciousness? What happens to our understanding of American history when we finally place Comancheria at the very center of the story? The untold chapters are waiting. What will you discover next? Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to help support our community.